good afternoon, good morning, no matter what time it is always time to interview amazing guests and talk about the work that they're doing within their community to uplift and empower everyone. I'm Dr. Lett. This is I'm Dr. Lett, the podcast. On this episode, I have an amazing friend first, mentor, assistant professor, someone that has, since the day we met, taught me so many things about life, fatherhood, professionalism, all things you can name. I don't want to kind of spoil his introduction. I will say he went to Michigan State University. I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan, so that's a little bit unfortunate. However, we're going to make this interview work. Dr. Michael Daniels, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Lett. Appreciate it. So, as Dr. Lett has shared, my name is Dr. Michael Daniels. I'm an assistant professor in higher education administration and student affairs, and I have had the pleasure of not only working with Dr. Lett, but a lot of wonderful folks that he's engaged with in his previous roles, and I am so excited to be here. So, thank you again for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, this interview is going to be one of those ones, so take notes. Dr. Daniels, your career has included roles such as a job development specialist, academic advisor, and director of a multicultural center. Tell us about your career journey.
Yeah, so people might not see the through line, but when I was a young lad growing up in Lorain, Ohio, I wanted to be a sports agent. So fun fact about me, and I used to, I used to pretend to be all the really amazing athletes in the city of Lorain's sports agent, even to the point where I was low key hustling on their behalf even before we had NIL. So I thoroughly just enjoyed the aspect of being able to advocate for people, right? Especially in the instances when they couldn't advocate for themselves. And I didn't really have the language to say that back then, but I realized that's what it was, representing folks so they can focus on other things and or, just find a way to get them to where they want it to be. So when I started my career, journey or kind of pursuit of a career, my undergrad degree is in psychology. I went to John Carroll University in Cleveland, and I went there thinking I was going to be a sports agent. So obviously, if you're going to be a sports agent, you need to be a business major. So I started off in business, and I took my first accounting class, and the professor asked the class, so how many of you have taken an accounting class before? Now, mind you, this is accounting 101, introduction to accounting.
Yes.
When I tell you everybody in the class, it was 26 people in this class raised their hand except me. I was like, it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it, but it's all good. I found my passion in psychology, and that path really led me to what I do now in a way, because my focus was in child and adolescent development. So I work with and study college students. So that makes sense. But I had a specialization in folks with autism. And so autism spectrum disorder at the time. And that led me into my first job, which was a job development specialist, which you mentioned. So I worked for Goodwill Industries. So folks don't know Goodwill, like the store, the thrift store that you go and buy your clothes from. Well, as you can see, all the things that they get are donated. So they don't pay for any of them. But when they sell them, they take those profits and they put them into community development things. So I got to be an agent, but I was an agent for folks that, just often struggle to find jobs because of how they're perceived, right? So folks with developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, people who were recently incarcerated. So I got an opportunity to basically pitch them as my clients to employers to say, hey, I got this amazing person who is interested in working in retail or interested in working in a pet store or wherever the employer was. And I give them a little bit of background, and then I'd say, oh, by the way, they just so happen to have cerebral palsy or whatever. I wouldn't usually disclose their disability, but I would say hey, they come with some accommodation needs, but I promise you, they're going to make a great employee. I'll sit with them for 2 weeks. I'll pay them their salary or their wages for 2 weeks. You won't have to pay anything out of pocket. And I did stuff like that for different folks to help them get and sustain employment. And that led me, I was simultaneously going after my grad school admission. So when I applied to Michigan State, I almost didn't want to leave because I enjoyed that job so much. because I got to not only get to work with phenomenal people, but I was like in the heart of Cleveland, all over Cuyahoga County, really. But I ended up going to Michigan State, getting my graduate degree in student affairs administration. I worked in human resources there. So I did everything from like recruiting, onboarding to training, development, and like coaching people out of jobs. I learned how to fire people when I was at Michigan State. But it was an amazing experience. I had some great people that I worked with. I went through a phenomenal cohort, of which you had somebody else on your show as well, Lauren Irwin. Dr. Lauren Irwin is my cohort mate. So shout out to
Shout
Lauren.
out Dr. Irwin.
Yes. So that was a great experience, but that's what led me to working at Kent, because another mentor reached out to me after I graduated from Michigan State and was like, hey, I know you want to be, working in a multicultural center. I've considered, coming back to Kent, because I did Upward Bound at Kent when I was just a high school student. And I was like, that's actually my dream job. And I found out they had a Men of Color initiative, which is my passion area. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I worked my way through the Multicultural Center, doing everything from developing a mentor program to the Men of Color initiative. I worked with, like the STARS, Academic STARS, which is a summer bridge program. And then I got a chance to be the assistant director and then finally the director. And I did that for 5 years before I transitioned into being a faculty member. So yeah, it was a really great experience. I've got my Ph.D. from Kent State. So yeah, it was a really good experience being an administrator, but I felt like it was time to, go full throttle into this scholarly life. I really enjoy writing, researching, love being in the classroom with our students, and I felt like I had a lot to contribute to our rising student affairs practitioners and scholars. So yeah, it's my
Yes,
career.
I absolutely love that. And fun fact for everyone, I did basically the same job at a Goodwill in the Youngstown area. And so it was a really enjoyable job to really work with folks of all abilities to support their employment, their growth, their development. Dr. Daniel, so I can understand the passion for a role like that one. Now, I have to ask you, is this the year for a Browns Super Bowl?
Oh yeah. I mean, no, it's not. I think that they're in what the sports world calls a rebuild. And me and my wife joke, when they traded Miles Garrett, we was like, okay, are we Browns fans anymore? Is this the year that we stop being Browns fans because they really just can't figure it out? It's been 26 years, y'all. 26 years. A lot of seasons of winless football. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I can't give up on my Brownies though.
I get it. I get it. Now, listen, Dr. Daniels, I have a follow-up. How did those early career roles shape you as a researcher focusing on Black men's leadership identity development?
Yeah, so actually it really does start from my like upbringing. So I talk about it in my dissertation and in my subsequent what will be the book that I write. But what a lot of folks don't know is like I was what they would consider like a troubled youth, a delinquent.
Mm.
So like when I was 15, I got into some trouble and then ended up putting me on a whole different like life path. And that kind of resulted in me being in this program around leadership development. And I want to credit two gentlemen. So Luther Washington and Vince Montague were both pivotal in my like development as a teenager with this leadership development program. They just gave me different things to think about of how to show up as a leader. I played sports, and so like you only really show up as a leader in one way in sports. Like if you're vocal, then you're a leader, right? Like everybody
Yeah,
talks about
yeah.
leading by example, but it's really like who's saying the things and then doing the things, right? So that made a really significant impact on me at an early age that kind of made me think deeper about what leadership looks like and how I wanted to like look at Black men specifically was my involvement in my fraternity as an undergrad at a predominantly white institution. I just felt like I wanted to expand the understanding of what leadership looked like, especially at an institution that doesn't really fully embrace all of my identities and or all Black
Yes.
men's identities. So that was really the impetus to everything. The roles that I had, I guess it just kind of showed up in different spaces, but mostly at the Multicultural Center of like supporting the Men of Color initiative. I was like, I got these brilliant young men who are leaders in their own right, but they're showing up in these different spaces across campus and they're not really being supported, and they're being told to change how they are identifying as a leader to fit a mold that really doesn't embrace who they are authentically. And I felt like that was problematic. So I was like, it's time to do something about that. And the power of the pen, just write about it.
Wow. And I love that. Now, for anyone watching this, if you've had the pleasure to meet and engage with Dr. Daniels, you may be surprised to hear him refer to himself as a troubled youth, the calmest, just really someone that's level. When there's chaos, you want Dr. Daniels around, right? I have witnessed Dr. Daniels put out fires, students, colleagues, just everyone, just so much, right? There's been challenges in terms of, higher education landscape and being in spaces that maybe not everyone feels comfortable in. And Dr. Daniels is he's here, right? So yes, kudos. And that's that. I love that. And I actually forgot to mention Dr. Daniels is a very humble man. He wrote the dissertation of the year, right? So wow, someone that his dissertation actually, I leaned heavily on writing mine. I didn't aspire to write dissertation of the year. I was one of those that I just wanted enough to pass that defense. Like let's keep it real, right? If you know, you know. So now,
Appreciate that.
Dr. Daniels, also with that, you're gonna have to let us all know when that book come out at some point, right? I know you're, still working through that. Y'all gonna have to go buy it.
Yeah, no, I definitely will. I definitely will. Maybe there will be for the folks that don't enjoy reading as much, maybe we'll see a film adaptation. But no, it really has been an amazing journey, honestly. It's just one of those things where, the life experiences that you have, you just can't leave out, leave out your experiences to share with other folks, because they might be able to benefit or appreciate or just normalize what people have been through. Like I have so many of my mentees who they're my mentees because they're like, yeah, I really had a lot of issues when I was younger too, or I grew up in a very similar environment, and like, you've walked the path, and like, let me know where the stepping stones are. So that's what I'm hoping this book ends up illuminating, is that how you start, it doesn't have to be how you end. So I'm hopeful for that for sure.
Well, and I can say that this podcast, I had an idea. I knew I wanted to connect my audience with high impact people like Dr. Michael Daniels and many of the other guests, actually all of the other guests, excuse me, that I've interviewed. And I was really nervous because I said to myself, will I make the impact that I'm trying to make? What I found was people wanted to get to know Michael Daniels, the person. Yes, he has these accolades. He's amazing in so many ways. But Michael Daniels has an incredible story, right? And he's open and comfortable sharing that really with anyone. And so that is why I do what I do. And speaking of your incredible work, your recent publication, it explored the experiences of undergraduate Black men in formal leadership roles at predominantly white institutions and resulted in grounded theory explaining their leadership identity development process. Tell us about that publication.
Yeah, so y'all can find it. This is the traditional copy, the in print. It is in ACPA's Journal of College Student Development. And for anybody who's interested in taking a look at it, just let Dr. Lett know to let me know. But yeah, it's a constructivist grounded theory, and the goal of constructivist grounded theory, or grounded theory for folks that aren't familiar, is to explain the process of something, right? So for my folks that really want to like take things apart and like see how it works and try to put it back together, like this is up your alley. If you're interested in understanding a deeper connection of Black men in leadership, this is up your alley. If you are a scholar around student development theory, this is up your alley because it really is to understand how